A giant move. Welcome in the beginning of another hour of the Ben Maller Show. We are in the air everywhere at your fingertips as we try to avoid all hail damage coast to coast, border to border, and beyond on the vast and hypnotically powerful microphones of FSR emanating live from the quarter. Our goal here is to avoid a bad quarter of an hour. That's really our only goal. We're broadcasting live from the TireRack.com studios. TireRack.com will help you get there. An unmatched selection, fast free shipping, free road hazard protection, and over 10,000 recommended installers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be. OG Art Puffin approves the number 10,000. Likes that number 10,000. So our lead this hour, we'll change it up a little bit. Giant move. It's a giant move if you're into the purchase of sports tickets. Our lead this hour, we're going to actually go to baseball. 'Twas the night before Game 1 of the World Series when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty. Bronx Bombers, the boys in blue. L.A., New York, Friday night, La La Land. So you got that going on. There's a couple of subplots I want to talk about. A couple of subplots. Now, you might know what these are, maybe not. The one I want to start with is the outrageous, over-the-top, in-your-face situation involving the value of this World Series. Now, these are the two biggest media markets in America, and these are the two sexiest teams in baseball. But we are told the average ticket price for game number 1 between the Yankees and the Dodgers, number 1, is the largest in the history of the secondary market. All right. In fact, not only that, for the entire World Series, the whole shebang, this is the most expensive ticket in the history of the World Series. The previous record was when the Chicago Cubs ended a 108 run run of futility, complete futility, and they beat the Cleveland Indians. They were called the Indians at that time. We can say that. Cleveland Indians. That was in 2016. So that was the previous record. And you kind of get it, right? Cubs, you had multiple generations of Cub fans. It was their dying wish to watch the Cubs in the World Series, and so you understood that. The Dodgers are in the World Series every couple of years. The Yankees haven't been in the World Series in a long time, but still, it's not like you'd have to be really young to say you don't remember the Yankees in the World Series. They were there 15 years ago. So the question, as we discuss, Dodgers and Yankees World Series record-setting ticket prices. Big deal, little deal, or no deal? So I've got Playground, Animaniacs, and Pharmacy Grade. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make Play ball is what we're going to make, because I can't wait. I'll be watching. I'll be sitting on my ass. I ain't paying $1,000 to go to Dodger Stadium, but I'll be watching the Dodgers and the Yankees. So my first thought on the question of the World Series ticket prices, is this a big deal, a little deal, or no deal? I have this as a little deal. It's not no deal because it's a lot of money. It's not a big deal because it's predictable. You've got on one side of the United States the Wall Street robber barons, right? The hedge fund titans of Wall Street versus Tinseltown movie mogul money and everything else. All the other rich people live in L.A. So the World Series is a playground for the wealthy, for the famous. It's palpable elitism is what it is, right? It's to be seen, to be heard, to see, and when we look at you and all that stuff. So everyone is hoping to be noticed by important or fashionable people at the World Series. And inflation is out of control. You might think it's bad buying a carton of milk or a block of cheese or some bread. But real inflation is being a loyal sports fan. The tyrants who run these sports leagues are over the top with their greed. It's unreal if you look at the inflation for tickets. So it's not a new story. There's no end in sight. The only way it stops is if people stop spending the money. And people have not shown that they're willing to do that. And if they did, the ticket prices would come down and there would be a change. There would be panic. I've said this before. The most powerful thing in all of sports is the A word, apathy. If you have apathy, then they freak out because that is the death of the business. That is it. Now, another storyline I wanted to mention here, the Dodgers and their game number one starter, and whether or not he's being set up here for a debacle. We're talking about Jack Flaherty, who's going to start game one. And the headline, which is bouncing around, you got to fill time. I understand that. You got a blog to fill. You got a social media. You got to get some clicks. The headline is the Dodgers are concerned about Jack Flaherty's velocity dip. Right, and they're worried about this. He's not throwing as hard as he did Game 5 of the National League Championship Series. His fastball velocity was not very good. Not very good. And so the quote from the Dodger pitching coach Mark Prior was moderately concerned. That was the quote. So, are you moderately concerned about Jack Flaherty? And I'll go for I am not. I expect him to go out there and pitch well. He's not on the road. I guess he's got the heebie-jeebies on the road. He's at Dodger Stadium, friendly confines, hometown, all that stuff. And he pitched well in that ballpark in his previous start in the playoffs. He sucked on the road. So he's at home. I expect him to pitch well. And this story annoys me. And the reason it annoys me is one of the flaws the Dodgers have is they are such velocity whores. I'm old school, I guess. I didn't realize that this is still a thing, but you can. I know this is going to blow you away. Call me a boomer right now. You can get hitters out without throwing it past them. You can use guile, guts and guile as a pitcher. And they used to, and this is going to really shock you, but they had this thing called the art of pitching. And it was deception. And yeah, I know, it's crazy for me too. Yeah. So God forbid Jack Flaherty goes out there and uses a little deception. Oh, you're such a loser. All right, now, staying with baseball. Major League Commissioner Rob Manfred, or as we like to call him, Manfred, recently said that he expects to implement the automated strike zone within the next 4 years. How does this one vibe with you? All right, so it is the next chapter in Rob Manfred recreating the Animaniacs cartoon from back in the day. The Animaniacs cartoon. You know, that Pinky in the Brain. What are you going to do tonight? I'm going to try to take over the world. And that's what Rob Manfred's doing. Ghost runners, check. Pitch clock, check, check. Bigger bases, check, check, check. Banning the shift, check, 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 check. No takeout slides at second base or home plate, check, 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 check. Mandating batters or pitchers face minimum number of batters out of the bullpen. Check, 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 check. So this is on brand. This is what Rob Manfred does. And I believe it will happen much sooner than 4 years. The automated strike zone will also allow Major League Baseball to use Big Brother to generate a tentacle-like appendage to manipulate desired outcomes if they so choose. Humans, at some point in the equation, will have to set up the algorithm for the strike zone, which obviously leaves room for some funny business, for manipulation. And anytime you have humans involved, you cannot have the automated strike zone without a human setting it up. So therefore, it is fallible. And planting that out there. All right, final thought. Quickly, we go to pro bouncy ball. And the games are not great talk radio, but the stories in the NBA often are. Here's an example. The season started a couple of nights ago. The NBA has already opened up an investigation into MVP Joel Embiid's plans to essentially never play in back-to-back games again. For some reason, Embiid decided to announce this with the Sixers that he just cannot handle, his body cannot handle playing back-to-back games. Well, Charles Barkley, the gold standard for sporting commentary, Charles Barkley got on the bully pulpit on TNT and unloaded on the Sixers star. I believe we have the audio. Yes, I think we do. All right, very good. Here is Charles Barkley, and listen to him and his thoughts on Joel Embiid.
Man, I don't have any idea what the Sixers are doing. You know, I don't think it's fair. Now, listen, I want to get this number right because this is crazy, and bless the kid, number one. He just signed for 3 years, $193 million. 3 years, $193 million to play basketball. We're not steel workers. We're not nurses. Like people who got like real jobs who have to work 40, 50 hours a week. We're playing basketball at the most 4 days a week. Most of the time, 3 days a week. He has the best backup in the league.
Yeah, and you're talking about Andre Drummond there. But what did you make of Charles Barkley? And there was more. What did you make of his lecture about Joel Embiid and load management? So for me, this was Frosted Flakes, right? Joel Embiid, not only is he Frosted Flakes, but they're great. Charles Barkley's words were great. It shows you the dichotomy between the NBA world and the real world. Now, I know there's a lot of fanboys that whatever the athletes do, they're called jock sniffers, and they support the athletes no matter what. But there used to be adults in the room, like Charles Barkley, who would say, this is ridiculous. This is absurd. Right? And the NBA is at a point now where they don't even pretend to say that there's a problem with it. Like Joel Embiid lives in a bubble. Joel Embiid lives in a world where he's insulated from the reality of the world, that he feels no guilt, no shame in taking a $193 million contract, as Charles Barkley said there, and not being able to fulfill the contract. Now, I've seen the standard verbiage in professional sports contracts, and there is a fitness requirement. And if Embiid can't play back-to-back, wouldn't that indicate that he can't meet the basic requirements for the contract, thus voiding the contract? I'm just saying. Right? I'm just saying. Can't play back-to-back games. And I take this show. I've been very lucky. You guys have been wonderful for me. You've supported this show for some reason for many, many years. I've been able to meet a lot of you going around the country. We're doing a meet and greet in Kansas City coming up in November. Hopefully I'll meet you if you're in that area. But I've met a lot of you, right? And many of you that listen to this show are working in factories. You're truck drivers, you're police officers. You've got jobs where you use your body. And your body is much like a professional athlete uses their body, you use your body for your job. And you guys, based on the sample size, are in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. And some of you are past the age of retirement and you're still working for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason. And you're busting your ass 10 or 12 hours a day. A lot of you are working your second or third job while listening to this show. And we have that world, and then we have the Joel Embiid world, where a $193 million contract, you can't be troubled to play back-to-back games. And it would be a case where he's like, well, just grab some pharmacy-grade ibuprofen and rub some dirt on it. And if you're unable to play, just retire, right? Just quit. If you can't do the job, don't do the job. Don't do a half-assed job. And the NBA gave us this dog and pony show. And they claimed it was a year ago. I remember. It's like they had their own little vaccine. Everyone loves the vaccine. They had their own little vaccine for load management. They did some study. They said it doesn't work. Load management, not effective. Well, the plague is alive and well. Not only with Joel Embiid, but Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers as well. It's just absurd. If you're unable to do the job, just don't do the job. Fine. There's somebody else will play basketball for the 76ers. And if Kawhi Leonard left the Clippers, somebody else would take his roster spot, and they would think they're the luckiest person in the world, and maybe they'll actually turn out to be good. Who knows? You know, it's possible. It's conceivable they might actually be good at basketball, and they might actually play in back-to-back games.